But I just want to say, on behalf of Pastor Joel and Victoria Osteen, thank you for making Lakewood Leadership Program something that you would want to jump in and be a part of. And we are grateful that you are here. And we're going to learn as much from you as you do from this course, this class. And we pray that it expands your leadership and our leadership. And we're here to develop the leader within. Amen? We're here. For those of you watching around the world, thank you for being a part. My name is Pastor Jeremy, and it's a joy to be with you tonight. Online, you'll see Pastor Abner will be on there. He just hosted everybody at the very beginning. You'll see Tara, my wife, Jeremy Marrone on there, and then you'll see Ruby a little bit later as well. And so we're going to get started. We are, this is the class number 4 of this year. We just began in January. Class 104 is the 4th class, and this is how to communicate effectively, as I stutter, how to communicate effectively. And we are in John Maxwell's book, Everybody Communicates, Few Connect. And we're going to talk about how the central tenet of communication is really connection. And we're going to talk about how we do that. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about how to communicate not just with our words. Only 7% of your communication as a human being is with words. 55% of your communication is your body language and your facial expressions. 33% of it is your tone. So, as we grow, as we talk about in leadership what it means to communicate effectively, we'll talk about frequency of communication, how often we communicate. We'll talk about how we communicate. We'll talk about the tone that we use. We'll talk about the energy that we use. We'll talk about the body language, the facial expressions. We'll talk about communicating in a way that speaks to the heart of the person. We'll also talk about listening. Listening is a powerful form of communication. In fact, many studies show in psychology that 80% of communication is actually listening. How we listen to somebody, what they're telling us, and what we're reading into what they're telling us is the vast majority of communication. So we're going to be in the book. If you haven't had a chance to get the book, you can go to groups. If you signed up through and registered through Planning Center Online, we have the resource, a link for you on there. You can go get John Maxwell's book, Everybody Communicates, Few Connect. And we're going to go through a little bit each time in chapters. Tonight I'm going to cover a little bit of chapter 1 and chapter 2. For next week, I would encourage you to look at chapters 3 and chapters 4. Chapters 3 and 4 for next week. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about just some basic foundational things for communication and what it means for us. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of ways of communicating. Because sometimes when you use communication, people go, okay, public speaking. That's a part of it. But when we talk about communication, what we're going to talk about is communication in many different levels of interpersonal communication. That means person to person. Communication with a group of people at work, your family, friends, at your church, a group of people you hang out with. One-on-one communication, and then, of course, public speaking. And we want to talk about that a little bit as well. Because in leadership and in life, the most effective tool we have is the ability to communicate what? To communicate our heart, to communicate our vision, to communicate our values, to communicate effectively everything. And so communication, anybody ever, I want to ask you a quick question, and then we're going to move right into it tonight because we got a lot to cover. Anybody ever had a conversation with somebody and you're sitting there talking to them across the table and they're giving you this I'm disconnected from you look? Or you ever sat at a dinner like this and you're talking to somebody and they're going like this? What is this communicating to you? Not listening. Right? I'm not interested. All right, number one thing tonight. I'll throw this in for free. Time. Many times we say, what's the most valuable thing we can give somebody else? Our time, right? But I think, this is my personal opinion, I think the most valuable thing we can give somebody is our attention. I can sit in a room with my wife, and she can text on her phone, and I can text on my phone, and we're not connected. We're at the same time for the same amount of time in the same place. That doesn't mean we have each other's attention. So I think communication, the vast majority of communication, is attention. You can have a conversation with somebody for 5 minutes and connect with them. You can sit in a room with somebody for an hour and not have their attention and not connect at all. So I think communication is about attention. how we give people attention, how we listen with intentionality. So I guess my question tonight is this. What is communication? When you hear the word. We're going to play a game. And I believe that we have chosen 8 people. Is that correct? Yes. We have 8 people. Could I have all 8 people come up? I'm going to have Ruby come up. Ruby Lopez. She's part of our staff. And Ruby's going to come up and help us. Yeah, thank you. Ruby's going to help us. Those of you watching online, we're going to play a quick game. You'll be able to see it. All 8 people that will come up, we're going to actually do a quick activity. And I'm going to ask you, those of you that are coming up, if you would, right here, face me, shoulder to shoulder. There you go. Terry, thank you very much. Come right over here. Abel, if you'll come right over here. And we have 1, 2, 3. And then we need one more. We have an 8th person. Am I counting incorrectly? No.
Yes, we are missing, Jeanette.
Jeanette? Oh, okay. There we go. All right, y'all give it up for Jeanette. Yeah. No worries. All right, so here's what we're going to do. This activity, you may have seen it before, you may not. But this is a lot of corporate team building activities use this. This is what we call the helium stick activity. It's a great one. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to play a little game with us. If you would come into the middle, and I'm blocking the camera a little bit, so I'm going to move out of the way. But if you'll come right here. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. You're going to need to get close enough to where, all right, if everybody would you just hold out your arms like this? Okay, just like that. And just your pointer finger. There you go. And I need you to come here. If you would come right here. All right, and I need your hand to touch just like that. Same thing. Your hand to touch. There you go. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take the stick and we're going to lay it on their fingers. And what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to make sure that the stick, as we put the stick on your fingers, the stick cannot be removed from your fingers. Your fingers must be touching the stick at all times. And those of you watching on camera, I'm sure that you can see it from here. And so what we're going to do, if y'all could tighten up just a little bit, come in. I know we've got to kind of get close. All right. If you can bring your fingers in just a little bit. Everybody make sure that both fingers are touching the stick. There you go. All right. There you go. Okay, so everybody's fingers are touching the stick. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a little game. And the activity is simple. I need all 8 of you together as a unit to lower the stick to the ground. But your fingers cannot come off the stick. They must be touching the stick at all times. I'm going to count down from 3, and then I'm going to say go, and you're going to try to bend the stick down, lower the stick all the way down, close to the floor as possible. Everybody with me? All right. Are there any instructions you didn't understand? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Try to lower down. Keep your fingers on the stick. Keep your fingers on the stick. Keep your fingers on the stick. Keep your fingers on the stick and lower it down. Keep your fingers on the stick. Your fingers must be touching, must be touching, must be touching. Fingers must be touching.
All the way to the floor.
Fingers must be touching.
All the way to the floor.
Fingers must be touching. On the underneath side. I see you over there. Fingers have to be touching.
Keep going. Down.
All the way.
Just drop.
Yeah, just drop it. Just go.
Down.
All the way. A little more, all the way.
Excellent. All right, y'all give them a hand. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Y'all gonna have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you so much. All right. So many times what happens in this activity is groups will get like this. We place the helium stick on their fingers, and because you can't remove your fingers from the stick, what will happen is people subconsciously will start moving the stick up. Right? At first, you start moving it up, and you're like, why is everybody moving it up? So what happens is exactly what this team just did. The challenge with the helium stick is not the fingers, it's not the length of the stick, it's not how many people, It's the communication. And what tends to happen in this activity, and you guys did a great job. You're probably the best group I've ever seen that I've ever used this with. And y'all did a wonderful job, but it was because you communicated. And what tends to happen is everybody tends to talk over one another, and then everybody starts asking questions, and then one end goes, why are you raising it up down there? And so what we do in this activity is many times, if people can't get it, and I've seen groups, we've gone 30 minutes with one group who could not get it all the way down to the floor. They just kept raising it up. And we stopped and we said, what was the issue? And they said, communication. It wasn't until somebody said, okay, this end first. Okay, now this end. Okay, now lower a little bit more on this end. Okay, on this end. And the reason is because many times when we don't have a leader in the group that's designated, or two, we don't communicate effectively, or we don't stop to think, how should we do the plan to get the stick to the floor? That's all a communication issue. Do we designate one person who is the verbalizer? Do we designate one person to give us a plan on how we execute getting the stick to the floor? Y'all with me? So the communication piece is everything. So I guess my question is this, and I want to open it up very quickly to the room. I know we have microphones right back here. So I want to ask you, when you hear the word communication, what comes to mind? When you hear the word communication, what comes to your mind? Anybody want to raise your hand and share with us very quickly? All right.
What communication means to me when two people are talking, or whether it's two or more, and one understands what the other one is saying.
Yes. When two people are talking and one person understands, I love the fact that you use the word understand. If you have notes, I would encourage you, write the word understand down. We're about to get there. Thank you. Thank you. You want to come up and teach this? Because you're already there. You already know. Okay. Two most important things that human beings need. Two most important things that human beings need. Number one, to be loved. Number two, to be understood. To be loved and to be understood. One of the coolest things in the world is to connect with another human being when that human being understands you. You ever had a conversation with somebody for the first time, you meet them, you have a 10-minute conversation, and you go, God, I feel like we've known each other forever. That person understands you. They give you some sort of human signal that they understand where you're coming from, what you're saying, what kind of person you are. And so understanding is a key part of communication. Understanding is what we're looking for in the goal. Now, we receive 35,000 messages every single day. Probably more than that now that social media has taken off in the last 10, 12 years. At least 35,000 messages a day. So the question is, if we have constant communication, words and billboards and social media and phones and text messages and emails and shows that we watch and news and stuff just coming at us, it can all become noise if we're not receiving certain messages that we want to get through the filter. So we pick and choose who communicates to us every single day. We pick and choose by what we give our attention to because we want to understand it. So I'm gonna show you. This is really funny. This guy's name is James Breakwell. He's a funny guy that I follow on Twitter. He's a writer, professional writer. And he talks about his children. He has hilarious interactions with his kids. And his 7-year-old said this, Dad, I'm done with my homework. And he said, you did it? And his 7-year-old said, that's not what I said. I said, I'm done with my homework. Understanding. The kid is saying one thing, Dad's hearing another. And the kid's like, not what I said, Dad. Now, as a parent, I'm like, get in there and finish. But you see, this is what we do many times as humans, isn't it? We'll say one thing, and they will hear another. You have a friend, you say one thing, they hear another. Parent to children, you say one thing, they hear another. My kids hear the wildest things come out of my mouth that I never say. Your spouse, if you have a spouse, you say one thing, they hear another, don't they? All the time. All the time. Why? Because in communication, understanding is central. It's key. Understanding is vital to communicating. Communication does not depend on word order or eloquence or rhetoric or articulation, the science of speaking and using words, but on the emotional context in which the message is being heard. People can only hear when they are moving toward you, and they are not likely to when your words are pursuing them. The way that we communicate either draws people in or pushes them away. And so communication is, yes, the words are important, the type of words we use, the way that we form sentences, but ultimately, the tone in which we use it, the heart in which we say it, and the context in which it is received is essential to understanding how we're communicating. This is a funny one. Yes, let's go to the previous one. Communication lays the foundation for satisfaction and well-being. By the way, I have put all of these slides in a PDF in the resources section of Planning Center Online. So if you go into groups and you click on groups, class 104, on the left side, you'll see a tab that says resources. You can click on that and you will find every slide from this PDF on there. So if you're taking notes, just know you can go on your computer later or on your phone later and you can download the PDF there, and so you'll have these slides. Communication lays the foundation for satisfaction and well-being. Why do we communicate? We communicate for function. We communicate for work. We communicate for all kinds of things as humans. But I think the most important reason that we communicate as human beings with our words, our actions, our tone, our heart, all of those things, we lay the foundation. The reason for that is satisfaction, fulfillment. Fulfillment as a human being and well-being. And those of us who communicate as servant leaders of other human beings, we serve and we lay a foundation for those that work with us or beside us or under us or above us, or the way that we communicate. What we help do is we help fulfill the human in them, if that makes sense. We help fulfill their experience as a human being by communicating in such a way that what they're hearing lifts them. And this is why communication is so important. So this is a funny, if you work in a corporate office, when an employee emails you a question when you just covered the topic in a bunch of company-wide communications. Anybody ever had this issue? You're like, you get that feeling, you're like, I just sent that out. Isn't it true? So there's a story of our team. We were in a meeting one time, and you can show the next one. We were in a meeting one time, and we were talking about a project. A couple of years ago in youth, when my wife and I, Tara, and I were directors of Lakewood Youth. And we were having a meeting, and we were talking about a big project, and it wasn't immediate, it wasn't an urgent project, but we were laying it out well in advance to make sure that we communicate it so we can get there. And so the team, at the end of it, before I had a chance to explain, here's our deadline, somebody raised their hand and said, hey, PJ, what is the deadline for this? And I said, just ASAP. Now, in your mind, what does ASAP mean? As soon as possible. But sometimes when people use it, they go ASAP. So listen to the tone. ASAP. Or, I need this ASAP. See the difference? The first one is like, oh, okay, 2 months from now. The second one is, you need this in 10 minutes. So the words are the same. And so it was funny because I stopped and I said, guys, as soon as possible. But ASAP, depending on how you say it, means different things. And that's what happens many times in communication. So how we lay the foundation for understanding is many times the heart, the context, the spirit in which it is laid. Now, I want to take us to the Bible very quickly. Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11. We're going to talk about the Tower of Babel. I know it's pronounced Babel. Many of us pronounce it Babel. It's actually pronounced Babel. This is the first place in Scripture, 250 times the Bible refers to the city of Babylon. This is the very first place that it is referred to in Genesis chapter 11. Human beings have decided that they want to reach as high as God. They want to be as high as God. In their pride, human beings at that time wanted to build a tower to the heavens. They wanted to link heaven and earth on their own power. They can't do that. Only Jesus can do that by God's power. So they built this tower, and God came down, and he said this. He said, look, in Genesis chapter 11, he said, come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand.
That's what I found.
Thank you, Siri. So that they will not understand one another's speech. Now look at the next part. So the Lord scattered them over the face of the earth, and they stopped building the city. You want to build anything in leadership? You want to build a person? You want to build a team? You want to build a company? You want to build a culture? Communication. You want to stop building something? Confuse everybody. Communication is the key to building anything. To building another human, communication is key. If I want to invest in my children and build them up in a godly way, I'm going to use my words. I'm going to use actions, but I'm going to use words. I'm going to use both. So the scriptures tell us that God understood the nature of human beings. If they could not communicate to one another, they could not finish the project. So communication, again, cornerstone of finishing, building, doing something in leadership. Communication is only effective with understanding. The Bible says in the very first class that we did in class 101, we talked about that God laid the foundation of the earth by wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. God laid the foundation of the earth, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. He built the earth. The ocean depths were burst open and the clouds dripped with dew. Then God called a man in Exodus chapter 31. The earth is like a temple, if you want to say it like that. The scriptures actually explain it in Genesis that the garden was a temple. And a temple just simply means, that's an ancient way of saying that's a place where God met with humankind. So God would walk with Adam and Eve in the garden. The garden was like a temple. It was a place where God met with humans. That's what temples are. God meets with humans. That's what the ancient world believed. And so you have them writing here at Exodus 31 where God tells a man to the children of Israel in the desert, and God says, I want you to build the tabernacle where the Ark of the Covenant would live before Jesus came. The Ark of the Covenant would be there. And the man that God chose, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. Notice he's from Judah. That's Jesus' tribe. And I have filled him with the spirit of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Understanding in communication. Understanding is a vital part for us as human beings to communicate. Now, effective communication happens when people do four things. Effective communication happens when people, one, pay attention to your message. Effective communication happens when people pay attention. Again, there's that word, attention. They pay attention to your message. Number two, they receive it in a way that it was intended. So you and I use words every day, but the question is, are people receiving it the way I'm intending to say it? You ever said something and somebody gets very offended and you're like, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Because we want them to take it in the intention and the heart with which we communicate it. Number three, they can recognize the details that are important to them. They recognize the details that are important to them. And number four, they walk away with a clear or relevant information. They walk away with clear or relevant information. Now, we're going to do an activity here in just a few minutes. And I want us to see about our communication and our listening. And I want us to really hear what people are saying. So we're going to do an activity. This is 60-second life story, active listening. So what's going to happen, those of you online are going to be there with Tara, and they're going to take 2 minutes. And what you're going to do is Tara is going to share her story, her life story, in 60 seconds. And all of you watching online, what I want you to do is I want you to listen for the things that are valuable to Tara. She's going to communicate. You can't say it all. If we could tell our life story, we'd really like to have an hour or 2 or 3 to explain everything. But the question is, what can we say in 60 seconds? Because if you only have 60 seconds to explain your life story, what are the most important things you want to put in there? We're going to do the same thing in the room. So I'm going to ask you at your table to grab a partner. And what I want you to do is the same. We're not going to go just yet, those of you online. What we're going to do is in the room, I want you to take 60 seconds with a partner. And I want you to share your, I know where I'm putting you on the spot. You're like, I wasn't prepared for this, PJ. I don't know. I've been at work all day. I've not been thinking about my life story in 60 seconds. I know. But here's what it's going to do. It's going to help you define, what would I say in 60 seconds if I had 1 minute on an elevator with somebody to tell them my life story? And I would ask, why do you want to get your whole life story out in a 60-second elevator ride? I don't know, maybe it's an agent and they're about to sign you for a book deal. I would do that. But here's what we're going to do. Pick a partner, and we're going to trade off. I want one person to talk, and I want the other person to listen for 60 seconds. The first person who's talking, I want the person listening to write down the words or phrases that you hear that you feel are most valuable from them. And then we're going to switch, and the person who was listening the first time is going to be the speaker, and I want the person who was talking the first time to write down what they're saying and what you believe is valuable. Those of you online, Tara's going to share hers in 60 seconds, and then for the last minute, I want you to share what you felt was valuable to her in the chats. So those of you online, go ahead and do it now. Those in the room, let's go ahead. We have 2 minutes, 60 seconds for each person. Share your life story in 60 seconds and then switch. Here's what I want to do. I want to take a moment. Those of you online, we have Vanessa, who's monitoring our chat tonight, and she's going to share with us very quickly. Tara shared her life story in 60 seconds online. Vanessa, would you share with us some of the response to what people heard in the chat?
Absolutely. We have Ellen, and she said, middle child in Texas, Colorado, and grew up in church but didn't follow God, lived in New York after college, then began to know God more and started working at church, got married, and had babies. We have middle child, moved to Texas, grew up in church, studied theater, began to pursue God, wanted to help people, started working at a church, have 2 babies.
They skipped the married part.
We have...
I feel like that's important, guys. Just kidding.
We have Geraldine. She said, born at a young age, share the middle child from
Born at a
Colorado,
young
did
age.
theater, grew up in church, but left church for a while, realized after doing her own thing, she needed God. She wanted help to help people, moved back to Texas, met Jeremy, had 2 babies.
I'm the winner in that whole story.
You made it in.
All right, now let's talk about it in the room. Anybody want to share? You listened to your partner in this activity. What did they communicate of value to you? What did they communicate about their life in 60 seconds? If somebody would be so bold to raise your hand and say, this is what I heard from the person that I was partnered with.
I was talking to Angela, and she shared a lot about her hardships through life. However, what I got from it is that she really values family, even though sometimes it's not easy to have a perfect family.
Yeah.
She's persevered through so many challenges, but family is very important for her.
I love that. And I love that you communicated the value that you heard in what she was saying. Love that. Love that. What is your name?
Miguel.
Miguel? Thank you, Miguel. Anybody else want to share very quickly? What did you hear from the person who shared with you their life story? What did you hear?
So I listened to Rosalind, who's from Lake Charles, Air Force brat, and lived in Puerto Rico and other places. Went to U of H, worked full-time through college, CPA, treasury, investments, accounting, and finance. I need her. And, and she loves her 5-year-old granddaughter who's going on 25, and she's retired.
Love that. Let's give her a hand. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for sharing. All right, we have one right over here. Hand up, Mr. Brad. Our man Brad right here, helping us out tonight. Thank you, Brad. Mr. NBA.
Hi, I heard Lupe, I spoke with Lupe, and I heard that she was a very caring, loving person that loves to give. She's in the medical field. She's a fur mommy, and she loves her family. She loves, as we all do, food, and she's just a wonderful person.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you. Great job. Anybody else want to share? What did you hear from the person who shared their life story, their 60-second life story?
I talked to Joan. She's.
If you don't mind, would you? Thank you.
I talked to Joan, and she's from New York. She's a baby of her family. She loves her sisters. She's in the oil and gas. She's a dog lover, but she can't have one right now. And I get that she's a person that likes nature, but she just seems like her family is very important to her.
Family is very important. And dog lover. Right? Any other dog lovers in the room? Any cat lovers? Cat lovers? We'll lay hands. Just kidding. I had a bad experience in 8th grade. Let me connect with you for a moment, okay? I had a bad experience in 8th grade. A little kitten scratched the mess out of my face, and I was like, I'm done with cats. But I tell you what, kittens are adorable, are they not? Kittens are great. My girls want another dog, and my youngest one wants a kitten. She's like, Dad, can we get a cat? We already have 2 dogs. Anybody dogs? I know we have dog lovers. Anybody have dogs? Man, let me tell you, how much can dogs communicate to us? A lot, can't they? And cats too. I love it. Anybody else want to share very quickly before we move on? All right, we're going to do this again here in just a minute, but okay, Mr. Paul Ray has somebody right over here. Thank you.
Pastor Jay, I had the opportunity to speak with Damien. He's very value-oriented. He loves to help others, would love to leave a legacy, and he values his family and, once again, that legacy for his kids.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. Thank you, Damien. See, isn't it cool? How many of you feel like you understand that person just a little bit more than when you walked in the room? You made a connection with that person, and you understand a little bit more of who they are because you listened to the things that are valuable to them. Because if you have 60 seconds, we're generally going to put in things that we really value, especially if we repeat things, aren't we? Especially if you ask somebody, do this. If you work in a team, an organization, a church, if you work at your family, go home, ask them, hey, in 60 seconds, explain to me your life story. In 60 seconds, explain to me in the last year, what's the best things that have happened in your life? And listen for what they value, because they will tell you what they value. And this is the basis for connection, because we as humans, we want to find connection with other human beings. And how we communicate value to other people is how we connect with them. So we love doing this activity. Communication is the key to success in life and in leadership. And the key to communication is connecting. The key to communication is connecting with people. You can do it from a stage and a crowd. You can do it one-on-one in interpersonal dialogue. You can do it in a group of people. It's all about connecting. One of the things I want to talk about in this, probably next week, we're going to discuss, is one of the things we talk about in communication from a stage. If you're doing public speaking, if you're speaking as a pastor, in a message, or you're presenting some sort of speech that you're giving, or you're doing a talk with somebody at your organization, your family, your a wedding, if you're giving a speech at a reception, there's 2 kind of maps, and I'll give you a sneak preview. There's 2 kind of maps. There's an information map, and there's a connection map. And we'll talk about the different principles not only the information the information map. Because see, what happens sometimes when we're communicating, let's say public speaking, we're communicating with some people, we write down all the ideas that we want to say. And many times we go, if I just get up and say all of these pieces of information, people will get it. But that's not always the case. So the second map that we'll talk about probably next week, second map we'll talk about is the connection map or the relational map. How do you actually connect with somebody with a foundation that's underneath all the words that you're saying? How do you, and let me tell you, we're here at Lakewood Church, and if there's one person that I know that is brilliant at this, it's Joel Osteen. He is a brilliant communicator, and I'll teach you next week exactly why he communicates so well. Very simply, but well. Dr. Dokes is another one that does it really well. He's so good at connecting with us, not just the words, but I'll share some, if you don't mind, Dr. Dokes, I'll share some of the secrets that these guys use in public speaking and in one-on-one interpersonal relationships, because it's brilliant, and you can do it, I can do it, we can all do it when we understand the relational connection as much as the information. You with me? So we'll talk about that. All right, let's do a fun activity. I want to hear your thoughts. A wife said to her husband, when we were first married, you would pull me off the shelf like a brand new book with crisp pages, and you would study me like you were taking a test. And now I feel like you've closed me up, you've placed me on the shelf, and I'm collecting dust. What is she really saying? You don't pay attention to me anymore. You don't work to understand me. I don't feel pursued anymore. But how does she communicate it? A brilliant word picture. So instead of saying, you never pay attention to me anymore, those are what we call in counseling, in marriage counseling, they're what we call infinitives. Be careful of those. You always do this. You never do that. Be careful of using infinitives. So what she's doing is she's actually communicating in a way where he goes, I get that. She does it softly, not harshly, not with infinitives, but she uses word pictures. This is what books do. This is what movies do. A picture is worth. It's communication. Communication. What she's really trying to say is we're not connected anymore. Research shows that 70% of failures in the workplace are due to poor communication. Not somebody's disconnection, not somebody's attitude, but just poor communication. We don't communicate well. We don't communicate enough. We don't communicate clearly. Things are missed. Sometimes we communicate certain phrases and words that mean something to one person and mean something else to another. Right? We use phrases and words in a way that can sometimes confuse. Connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in a way that increases your influence with that person. Connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them. To relate to them. One of my favorite things, a mentor of mine used to say this all the time. We would be having conversation, and I would tell him about something I had gone through, and he had not experienced that. But I love this phrase. He would stop and he would look at me and he goes, I don't know what it feels like to be there, but I would love to understand. You know what that did for me? Made me want to share. Write this phrase down. 3 words. 3 of the most powerful words in communication. Interpersonal, especially interpersonal communication. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. I'd love to hear more. I'd love to understand. You have somebody who goes through a traumatic experience and you're there to listen to them. And sometimes, especially in full-time ministry that we're in, sometimes we sit with people on things that have been very difficult and hard situations. Maybe somebody lost a loved one. And sometimes, when people are young in ministry, especially young pastors that are just starting out, they go, I don't know what to say. And I always tell them, it's not about necessarily what you say. Being there and listening is communicating everything to them. Being there and listening. On the job, many times, we're trying to communicate with a coworker. We're trying to explain to them. One of my favorite phrases that I like to use is, if I'm hearing you correctly, this is what I'm hearing. And then I will explain it and give them a chance to go, that's not what I meant. I actually meant this. And I'm like, thank you for clearing that. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying this. One of my favorite phrases to use, because I want to make sure that the phrases they're using are the same things that I'm interpreting in my mind. The communication is not lost, that we're not crossing signals. The number one criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is an ability to communicate effectively, according to Harvard Business. Number one, communication. Communication. Dr. Dokes and I were having a discussion. He and Bradley spend a lot of time working with people, coaching people in leadership. One of the things that we've talked about in the last few weeks has been really important communication. And you can attest to this, that the absolute necessity to be able to communicate things clearly. Brevity, being brief, and being simple are many times the best way to communicate. Not lofty ideas, not big words, but communicated in a way that's clear and effective. And many times being brief and short is a good way to do it. But that's because most people in the workplace we believe, in our mind, we believe that if I just say the words that people will understand and they'll do what I'm saying, or they'll understand and connect with what I'm saying. But that's not always the case. So learning to communicate effectively is an art more than a science. You're like, but I put the prepositions and I put the adverbs and the verbs and the nouns and I put everything in the right form to form a sentence. Yeah, but the tone in which we said it, that person's not receiving it. So it's not the science of the words, it's the art of how they're receiving it. All right? So, leadership is about connecting. Serving customers is about connecting. Raising kids is about connecting. Having a relationship is about connecting. Connection is the foundation of communication, and communication is the key to fulfillment in any relationship. Business, partnership, spouse, child, friend. Communication is everything, and the foundation of that is the connection piece. It's connecting heart to heart. Our final exercise that we're going to do tonight is we're going to do another 60 seconds. You with me? You have your partner? Okay. Same exact situation, but I want you in 60 seconds to describe your perfect, ideal day. What would you, not what you've done. Listen to me. I want to make sure that I communicate this clearly. Not a day that you've already lived out necessarily. What would be your dream ideal day? If you have lived it, explain the day you've already lived. If you haven't, explain in 60 seconds. Those of you online, Tara's going to do the same thing with you again. She's going to explain her perfect day in 60 seconds. Take the second minute and write in the chat what you believe you heard. Let's do the same thing. Pick your partner, one person at a time, communicating, the other person listening, and then we'll switch. All right, 60 seconds. Go ahead and go now. So now I'm going to call on, let's report back a little bit. I'm going to call on people that are online as we're finishing up here in the room. I'm going to call on a few people who shared online. Vanessa is monitoring our chats once again. So Vanessa, if you would share with us, what did people say? What did they hear when Tara explained her 60-second perfect day?
A late morning, not interrupted by kids, and waking up on the beach with coffee, all caps and emphasis on coffee,
So true.
A family with lots of love and laughter, sleeping late and relaxing. Tony shared late morning, coffee made, children playing, no arguments, being outside, especially at the beach, family and laughter. I have Miss Tara wants to have a soft wake up and ease into her day with coffee.
A soft wake up. I love the way they explain that. That is so true. That's so true. It's a good hour. It's a solid hour, babe. It's a solid hour. Yes. Yeah, I know. Hey, what are your thoughts on 10 minutes into her waking up? So what's funny to me, oh, go ahead.
Okay, we have Lauren. Her notes are sleeping in, fully rested, waking up to hot, strong coffee,
Yes.
go outside to the beach and sit quietly, alone for about an hour. Children join her, no needs, playing peacefully. Jeremy enters with biscuit and bacon. No stress and lots of laughs.
I love it. It's so funny because they said late morning. But if you were to ask me what late means in the morning versus what Tara means by late in the morning, we use the same exact word. Do you think we're talking about the same time? No. Right. So this is one of those situations that even in the explanation, you can see if she says late morning, what does late morning mean to you? Dr. Dokes? Late morning is like 4 a.m. God bless you. God bless you. This man's in the gym at 3:30. I'm in the gym. I am in the gym in my dreams at 3:30. Dreaming of sitting, watching other people work out. And not drinking coffee. So I don't drink coffee. Anybody coffee drinkers in here? Okay. Tara is a coffee drinker. She loves coffee. That's what I know. Anytime she would explain her life story or her perfect day, coffee is going to be involved. But we're not like that. Okay, somebody in the room want to share very quickly. What is the person that you heard and you listened to, what is their 60-second perfect day? Give us one highlight.
Pamela says that the best moment is to attend on Sunday to Lakewood Church. Of course, she's one of the angels who sing here in Lakewood Church in the aquarium.
Love it.
She enjoys, she worships, she connects with the Lord, and the most important is she feels joy. So, and I not only listen to her, I feel the joy of her. That inspired me to do it the same.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on this side? Anybody want to share very quickly what you heard from the person explaining their 60-second perfect day? We have somebody right here. Excellent.
Well, Paula, she had some interesting things to share. One of the first things she said was that she wanted to be in full-time ministry with her family, and that she had a desire to start a Christian school in her country, in Africa. So I thought that really represented her values as a Christian in serving others.
I love it. I love it. Let's give her a hand. Love this. Perfect day, serving others. Perfect day, serving others. Yes, ma'am.
I have two guys on the east side.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about both of them, what I heard. They like to get up early, both of them.
Can we hear online? I want to make sure the mic is up enough.
Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, they like to get up early, and then both like to exercise. They both like to spend time with Jesus. Only thing he offers Jesus coffee. And then one here, he likes to do volunteer service.
Love it.
And then rest the rest of the day. He likes to spend time with his family at the end of the day, and he also likes to exercise.
Love that.
Both of them have the same thing in common.
Love that. Love that. Very good. Very cool. Anybody else? Right back here, yes. "60-second perfect day."
Hi, I got a chance to talk to. She said everybody calls her Q. Her perfect day would be in nature. She loves to exercise, she says, and travel. So.
Love that. Anybody like to travel? That's a good day. Traveling. We like to travel everywhere but the basketball court, right, Brad? I was a basketball coach for 9 years, and I'm like, stop traveling! Dribble the ball. Anybody else on this side want to share very quickly? Oh, right over here, Mr. Paul Ray.
Pastor, quick
Yes.
thing. I said when I was explaining a peaceful day, I said no headaches throughout the day. Context for me was speed bumps. So he asked me, what do you refer to as headaches? How often do you get headaches? So that's just a prime example of.
You were talking about headaches in a metaphorical way, things that annoy you or things that are.
Correct.
Yeah, that are obstacles.
Correct.
I got it. Okay. Not the scientific, right, the muscle, yeah. Okay, I got you. See, that's good. That's good. How we interpret certain things that people say is understanding what they're trying to explain to us. That's a great analogy. Yes?
Well, Carmen said that she would like for her family to start the day with prayer. So her husband, her kids, and everybody to start day with prayer. So.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Excellent. Thank you. Now, I think it's very important for us as we do this activity. We just have a few minutes left. I think it's very important for us to understand why would we do these two activities? Because what it does in communication is we get to practice active listening. We get to practice listening for certain things that this person is saying, and the way in which they're saying it, the reason that they're saying it. So many times if you're listening to somebody's 60-second perfect day or their story, you can connect dots in the story. You can go, oh, I see why you like that and like that. Okay. I can see why you like these certain things. They all connect. So what it does is it teaches us that one of the best ways to communicate is to, in our listening, to make connection. I'm listening for things that they value. I'll give you an example. Dr. Paul Osteen. Dr. Paul Osteen is, for those who may not know, he is Pastor Joel's older brother. He's been a pastor and a director, senior director here at Lakewood for many years since Pastor Joel was hired came on as the pastor in 1999. Dr. Paul's a medical surgeon, but he spent a lot of time on staff, and he's mentored many of us in ministry. Brilliant mind in ministry and medicine. And we were talking one day, and we had just taken over in 2018, we'd taken over all of Lakewood Youth, and we were having a conversation. And many times, Dr. Paul and I will talk. We have the opportunity to be on Monday Night Bible Study together, and we'll talk about theology, we'll talk about Bible, we'll talk about those things. We happen to be having a conversation about youth ministry, and I know this, if Dr. Paul repeats something to me more than once, I know it's important to him. Because he's very, like this, with his tone, he's very soft-spoken. He's never demanding. He never yells. We sit at a table, and when he says, and I know for him, if he repeats something, I'm going to write that down. That's active listening. And I remember having the conversation, and then a week later, we had a conversation, and he said, hey, I would really love if we did this with the youth ministry. And I went, okay. And a week later, we were having lunch, and he said, hey, I'd really love it if we did this. And I said, Dr. Paul, you said that to me a week ago. And he goes, I know. And I went, point taken. But it's never going to be, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're going to have. It was very soft, but it was clear. That's communication. I understood if he repeats it to me. Same thing with Pastor Joel. Let me tell you, Pastor Joel says it more than once, it's a go. It's a go. Because you understand, when you understand somebody and how they communicate, when you're listening for the things that they value, okay? Friends, spouse, people at work, how many times have you sat and heard the same person tell the same story on your job? Anybody have people like that at work? You're like, they tell the same story. Why? Because something in that story is valuable to them, and they want you to know it. All right? Mr. Bradley, would you come up here to in class for us? I'm going to put him on the spot. Y'all give Mr. Brad a hand. Mr. Bradley Branson works with Dr. Dokes, but he works in the Houston area, and they do leadership development. You work with a lot of teenagers. Mr. Brad has quite an extensive history in the sports world, played in the NBA, played overseas, played in Spain, has a lot of incredible talents. But one of the things Mr. Bradley does is he speaks fluent Spanish from your time there in Spain. And so he has learned to communicate in multiple languages, which I think is a beautiful thing. But I'm going to ask you very quickly, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. I did not tell him this, so I appreciate you.
No problem.
Here's what I'm going to do. I want you to do this. I want you to do this for us. If you don't mind, would you take 60 seconds and explain your perfect day to us with no prep?
Perfect day would be waking up, spending about 45 minutes meditating and praying and planning my day. Getting up and going to the gym to work out for about an hour, hour and a half. Then I work a lot during the school year with underdeveloped kids, kids that get back in high school. So I'll go into the office about an hour early and plan and look who I'm going to talk with that day. And then meet with them, try to get them back on a positive thinking, which is really important to me. The young generation is really important. So I try to get them back and relax, read a book.
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Relax, read a book, have a nice dinner, talk with friends, talk with my family, both in Spain and Miami, and go to sleep, pray, and then start all over again in the morning.
All right, y'all give him a hand. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, what did we hear? What did we hear? Somebody raise your hand. What did you hear from his 60-second perfect day?
He cares about others, and it's important to him.
He cares about others, and it's important to him. How did you know that he cares about others and it's important to him?
Because he talks about helping youth and getting them back on track, being there to listen to them.
Good. Love that. Mm-hmm. Love that. What else did he say, Mr. Bradley say, in his 60-second perfect day?
I heard him that he said he takes care of himself.
He takes care of himself?
Yeah, he gets up, he exercises, he spends time with God, and that's important, getting your day started. So that's what I heard him say, that the first thing he do is contact the master.
That's right.
And find out what his day should be about.
That's right. He connects with God.
Right.
First.
Right, and get his instructions.
Ooh. Love that. Love that. All right over here. What else did you hear from Mr. Bradley?
I heard that he really, really, truly loved to connect with the Lord, but he also loved his family well. And the two states that they both live in, he communicates with them. But he communicates with them in love within the Lord.
Love that. Love that. Pastor Joel says this all the time. Never connect with other people before you connect with God. God's first. God's first. Why? Why is God first? Anybody want to share? Why do you think connecting with God is so valuable first before we communicate with other humans? Yes, sir. Direction.
Direction.
I love it. You get direction.
Yes.
I like it. Direction. Guidance. Very good.
You need to be full.
You need to be full because you got to have something to give. I love it. Yes.
I think for me, it sets the tone for the day. Like, I'm very emotional, sorry. But when I spend time with God first, it sets the tone for the day for me.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with us. That's good. Anybody else hear something from Mr. Bradley? Anybody else? Yes, right back here.
He's preparing for his own direction, for the direction with God, and preparing the direction for the children and for the children of the world. So he's preparing. It sounded like he's very prepared and likes to be prepared.
I like it. I like it. You know what's great, and I appreciate that you repeated that word a number of times, because that's exactly the word that I thought in my mind when he was talking. You and I heard the same exact word. And I think preparation helps you to understand what you're going to use or do that day. Back to understanding. Preparation is, do I understand? One of the things that we talk about many times in sharing, public speaking, preaching the Bible, anything you're doing in front of people, know your content, understand what you want to say, understand where you're coming from in your heart, understanding how you're communicating. And I think that's preparation. Thank you. That's a great word, preparation. Anybody else? Last one. Actually, let's do two. You had your hand up right here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. In my perspective, if we don't approach to the Lord in the beginning of the day, we don't wear the full armor of God. And to wear the full armor of God is the most important thing to be ready for any disadvantage, any setback, because that exists. Not because we approach to the Lord, we're going to not to have it. We're going to have more because it's a process for a stretch our heart.
That's so good. I love it. I love it. Right here. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Final one.
I just want to stress that he said that it's important to set a positive mind to those children, and he repeated it, it's important. So I think that's something that you value a lot, right, is setting that positive mind. So.
I love that. So for us, starting off this first week, as we leave, communication is about listening. Communication is about connecting. Connection is the foundation. Communication is the key to having successful relationships, successful leadership in life. It's the key to having fulfillment in life. And the foundation of communication is connection. We connect with other people. We listen. We understand. The Bible says that God has given us the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So when we connect with God first, we are able to fully understand what it means to be human. And what I love about it is, and I can't speak for anybody else, but maybe, I don't know, hear me for a second. You ever had a really stressful day? You've been frustrated at work. Boss was short, or you're the boss and your team didn't get things done, and you're like, what is happening? You come home and you feel tired, you feel worn out, and maybe that one person is waiting for you, and they're like, hey, I'd like to talk. And maybe you go, okay. Where do we find the strength, the spirit, to sit and listen after a long, stressful day? And I think that's the connection with God. And I don't think it just happens in the morning. I love that Bradley said that. But I think all throughout the day, we connect with God. We're able to connect with others. Because God gives us the strength and the spirit and the peace to come down off the stress, the worry, fears, the frustration, whatever it may be, to come down off of that and really put on listening ears and connect with somebody. Isn't that cool? God is good. And so communication, listen, communication isn't just saying words. Communication is connecting with a human being, whether it's a group of humans, whether it's a team of people at a table, a family, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a child or a parent, whatever it is, communication is about connecting with other people. And the most important thing we can do, active listening, is really understand where are they coming from and ask good questions. Let's finish tonight. Father, we love you. We thank you for who you are. I thank you for everybody watching online. I thank you for everybody in the room. As we go home tonight, thank you for clearly showing us that communication is so powerful. It's a tool. It is a gift that you have given to us as human beings. And God, we want to steward our communication and our connections well. So help us as we leave to understand what it means to truly communicate, to connect and listen. And Father, we want to be filled by you, filled with your Spirit, so that we can receive and give to others in fulfillment. That's what we want. We want others to be satisfied as we speak words of life, as your word says in Proverbs. We can speak life to them, and I pray that our words would be seasoned with salt, and they would be light and life to people that we communicate to. In Jesus' name. And everybody said? Amen. Thank you for all of you that came in person tonight. And I want to say thank you to everybody that was online tonight. We love you very much. You're going to end with Ruby here in just a second. We'll see you next week right here, 7 o'clock, part 2, week 2 of Communicating Effectively. We'll see you next week.